So, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for our update on our return to school plans. It has been about a month since the last time we held one of these meetings, and we definitely have a lot more clarity on some issues and some more information to share, some specifics about what Student Day will look like, and some other things that have been happening at BCC since the last time we spoke. I do want to remind everyone that this presentation is being recorded, and I will make it available on YouTube as soon as I get a chance to process it. So you'll have an opportunity to go back and refer to it. So welcome again. This is our March 25th update on our return to school. So as we talk about this, I just want to make sure everybody's aware of the kind of format of this meeting. This is a webinar format, which means that although I can tell that there are 139 participants here, I cannot see you or hear you, and there's no good way for me to interact with you. So there is a question and answer function that is available. If you see it, it shows up as Q&A with two little speech bubbles. You can ask questions in that if you have questions that are there, and the administrative team, all of the assistant principals, Ms. Teicher, the school business administrator, and also with us tonight is our school nurse, Ms. Carrie Dwyer, are available to answer questions in that Q&A as we're going through. There are a lot of questions that we will answer as we go through this presentation, so you may get that response back that this question will be addressed later in the presentation. But there may be some things that we don't have answers to or that we hadn't really considered at this point. And if we don't know those, we will make sure that we get that information back to you as soon as possible. And we will put that in our community FAQ document, which was sent out late last week. The last thing is just a reminder that this is up to date as of this afternoon. I went through again and made sure that everything reflected the most accurate information that we had, but it is subject to change. So we'll try to flag any changes that come along after this, especially now that we're really coming up on the day when the first students will be returning to BCC. So I just want to share with you a little bit of the topics. So we're going to go through really quickly a couple of ideas of some of the things that have changed at BCC inside the physical plant. We're going to talk a little bit about what a day for students looks like at BCC. We're going to talk about some logistics, and then I'm going to share with you just a couple of next steps for parents to take. I do want to say very clearly that there may be parents who are listening, who are tuned in tonight, who are thinking about what this means for their child who is remaining virtual. And I will admit up front that this presentation is really geared for those students who are returning to the building. There will be a couple of times when I talk about what things will look like for virtual students, but pretty much a student who's remaining all virtual will see very little change in what they've seen over the last couple of weeks. So we're going to start with really a look at what has changed at BCC. And we have a brief video that I'm going to play. It's about 5 minutes, and we're going to just take a quick look at what has happened at BCC, what's happened inside, and Dr. McGarrett was going to take us on a quick tour of the building. Hello, BCC students, parents, and community members. This is Dr. Mooney, and I want to share with you a little bit about some of the changes that will be happening when you come back inside our building in just a couple of short weeks. We've been busy trying to make sure that we're prepared for your return, and we are actually very excited that we're going to have people in the building again and be able to hear and see and talk to each other outside of our computer screens. The purpose of this video today is really just to give you a small glimpse of some of the things that you'll see when you return to BCC. And Dr. McGarrett is going to take you on a tour of this. We look forward to seeing you soon. Take care and be well.
Greetings, BCC families. My name is Dr. David Mungerwa. I'm one of the assistant principals here at BCC High School, and I would like to thank you for taking the time to view this brief video to show you exactly some of the health and safety procedures we've taken in the result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to take a tour through our school and look at our small gymnasium, our hallways, our cafeteria, our classrooms, as we put the health and safety procedures first priority for our staff and students here at BCC. Thank you for taking the time to view this video. Behind me is the entrance to the small gymnasium here at BCC High School. The small gymnasium will be used for two purposes. The first purpose will be to utilize the space as an overflow area as students arrive in the morning. We will also have over 100 desks that are socially distanced as a great way for students to be able to relax and enjoy themselves in the morning time prior to the start of school. The second purpose of the small gymnasium will be to utilize it as an overflow space for students to eat during lunchtime. Behind me, we have the attendance atrium. The attendance atrium will be utilized as a space, as an overflow area in the morning for students to arrive. In addition, we will also utilize the same space for students to eat during the cafeteria hours. We also have an overflow space outside for students to eat in our courtyard. Welcome to the cafeteria entrance. As you can clearly see, we have this area marked as a down-only area. We want all of our students to enter. They are not permitted to enter in through the wheelchair ramps. We want them to come down these stairwells. Once they receive their meals, they will be able to enter into the left-hand side or the right-hand side of the cafeteria entrance. Inside of the cafeteria, we have plenty of available seats for students to sit down and enjoy their meal while they're here at BCC High School. One thing I want to make sure that all families are well aware of is that MCPS has made the important decision to make all meals, breakfast and lunch, free, no additional cost whatsoever. You will be able to eat for free at this breakfast and lunch, no additional cost whatsoever. This is one of the many staircases that we have here at BCC High School. What we've done here at school is we've taken the measures to ensure that we have a clear line of traffic that are noted on the steps. For example, if you take a look at this floor, you can clearly see that we have a down-only area. This means, students and family members, that we want you to come this stairwell or down. The opposite side of me is an up-only entrance. Students, please take note of which area you are supposed to enter and exit the stairwell, up only or down only. This area here is known as the art atrium. The art atrium has two purposes. The first purpose is to serve as an overflow area for students in the morning during arrival, and the second purpose, as you can see here, is a socially distanced area for students to be able to eat during lunch hour. Here's one of our classrooms that we have in the C building, known as the math wing at BCC High School. What I would like for you all to do is please take note of the number of desks that we have, which have been drastically reduced from the typical number of 25 to 30 desks. We have also been abiding by our CDC health guidelines to maintain social distancing within the classroom. And please take note, students, you need to wear your mask at all times throughout the building. So when you're inside of your classroom, please make sure you have your mask on at all times. This is F305, one of our classrooms that are one of the largest classrooms that we have here at BCC High School. If you will take note of the classroom, you will notice that we have socially distanced our seats for our students to stay at least 6 feet apart in order to maintain our standards with the CDC guidelines. We hope that each and every one of you will enjoy your time here at BCC High School upon your return. This is a shot of one of the many hallways that we have throughout our building. Now, as you can see, we have clear markings on the stairwells to let students know which direction they should proceed up or down the stairwell. In addition, we also have dividers within our hallways that let students know which traffic pattern they should follow while moving throughout the hallways. Now, behind me, you see an area that is marked off with caution tape. This is an area that we do not want students to sit in, even though students are accustomed to sitting there throughout the school year. Please note that we will have areas that we do not want students to be marked off with caution tape. All throughout our building here at school, we have signs in front of every single bathroom. The signs will clearly note the maximum occupancy of individuals who are allowed within the bathroom. Sometimes it may be 2, and sometimes it may be 3. In addition, we would like for you to take note that our water fountains will not be in use throughout the building. Once again, our water fountains will not be in use throughout the building. However, students will be able to utilize the water bottle filling stations that are all throughout the building. Thank you for watching this video and honoring these rules and guidelines. We look forward to seeing you soon.
So that we were hoping just to give you a brief glimpse of some of the changes that are inside the school. That is a very indicative of what we see as you move around the different areas of the school. And as we transition to that, with the next part of our presentation is actually going to be to talk about the student day. And the first and most important part of the student day is really to start by talking about safety. And there's some basic safety guidelines that we have put in place in order to really make sure that students and staff members who are in the building are safe, and also that families are safe because the students will be coming home at the end of the day. So just a few guidelines. We've been over these before in different ways, but making sure that everyone is aware of this, that students must wear a mask. Dr. McGarrell mentioned that, that fully covers their mouth and nose at all times. They can, take a drink of water and put it back on or do that. But unless they're eating lunch, they're expected to have that. We do ask and expect that students will follow the hallway directions in accordance with the signage that we have posted throughout the building. We are aware that's going to take some changes of habit. It even has taken some changes of habit for those of us who have been in the building for a while now, but we do ask that they do that. Students also should maintain that 6 feet separation while they're in the building in as much as possible. We know sometimes that's a challenge, but that is still the recommendation that we have. And most importantly, students should remain in their assigned location until they've been given permission to leave. And then they should move directly to their next location during that transition time. We will be working with students to do this and we'll be reminding them, but we will also be addressing if these safety guidelines are not followed, because we do want everyone to have a safe experience and we don't want people to be worried about their own safety or their child's safety during the return to school. So we are asking for parents to speak to your child about that in advance of returning so that they're aware and that they understand kind of their role in helping make sure that everyone is safe. So the next part of the student day we want to talk about is the arrival time. So you will notice that there are two kind of waves of arrival that are possible at BCC. The first is for those students who are riding on MCPS transportation. So that MCPS transportation will actually follow the MCPS regular bus routes and bus schedules that are available on our website. And those buses pretty much drop students off from 7:25 to 7:45 in the morning, and students are there. So if you know, or if you've seen the schedule, classes don't start until 9. So the time between when students are dropped off and when classes start is a time period when we're really looking at what we're having students do. So when those students arrive that are riding the bus, they will report to the cafeteria, the atrium, or the gym, those areas that Dr. McGarrell showed during the video, as directed by staff. And again, as Dr. McGarrell mentioned, breakfast is available to all students for free. And students will be asked to use that time to prepare for the day. It really is a time when they can use as a study hall where they can make sure that their Chromebook is working. And we also have daily academic supports that Barron's accessing teacher time from 8 to 8:30 every morning. It is divided by department, and that's on the schedule that's sent out weekly. But that's been what has been happening for the past 2 weeks also. So there are opportunities for students to use this time for academic support. There are opportunities for students to use this time to make sure that they're ready for their day. If a student is being dropped off by a parent, we actually have two locations that we are using for student drop off. One of those is the Charlton Street side, which is closer to Connecticut Avenue, if you're not familiar with that. And we're asking that be the access point for students who have classes in A, B, or C classrooms. I know if you're new to BCC, that might not mean much to you, but it is on the schedule, and we have those specifically marked. And then the main entrance bus loop coming off of East West Highway is the second parent drop-off location after 7:45. And we ask that parents use that location for students who have their first class of the day in a D, E, or F classroom. And our goal in having two drop-off points is, again, to maintain safety, but also ensure that everyone can get in and out of the parking lot, and the surrounding roads and traffic can be as smooth as possible in those first few days. If you are a car rider, a parent drop off, a walker, a bike rider, anything besides an MCPS bus transportation, you can arrive between 7:55 and 8:55 a.m. If you arrive prior to 8:45, you will be doing all of those things I talked about that the MCPS bus riders are doing: reporting to the cafeteria, the atrium, or the gym as directed, There'll be breakfast available for you. There's a time where you can access your teachers virtually in order to get support. If you're dropped off at 8:45 or later, you'll actually be just reporting straight to class. 8:45 is around the time we will start moving students from those areas in the morning, from the cafeteria, the atriums, or the gym to their first class of the day, whether that's first period or fifth period. So the schedule, this is an opportunity where I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between in-person and virtual and what that looks like. So the schedule that you see on your screen right now is just a snippet of what an A day in a blue week. It doesn't really mean anything that it's a blue week. It's just a snippet of what that means. And if you look, the beginning part of the day up until 9 o'clock is the same. And you see that the students are prepped for the day before 8 o'clock. They have that opportunity, forbearance, accessing teacher, that bat time, as we call it. And then they have about a half an hour where they're either getting ready for their day again, or they're transitioning to first period if they're in the building. Uh, if they're not in the building, then they have a little bit of additional prep time. First period is the same for all students. There is a difference after first period. We will have some in-building announcements. We're anticipating that there will be some very specific things that we need to say to students who are present in the building, given the changing circumstances that we have, or things that we notice, or information that we need to communicate specifically with them. And we want to make sure that we have that opportunity. We will also be making general announcements to students, any announcements that we might make on a normal basis. Any of those announcements that would be for the whole student body will continue to be shared with all students via Synergy, just as we're doing right now. If you look through the rest of the day, you actually see that the rest of the day lines up exactly whether you're in person or virtual. The difference is when you have the time between classes, you do have a transition when you're in the building, and it is a break when you are virtual. So that's the big difference there. And a B day is essentially the same. Wednesdays will, if it's a typical Wednesday, will remain as they have been for the past 2 weeks. And then there are schedules for adjusted early release days and things like that. But this is the typical day, what you'll see for most of the remainder of the year. So when we have students in the building, we do have that transition time between classes. A big change that will be happening at BCC for the remainder of this year is actually that we will not be ringing bells other than to start and end the day. And that's a big change, because we'll be working with teachers to really identify the times when students are released for class. So it will not be an instance where the clock turns to 10:05 and everybody gets up from their first period class because the announcements are over and it's time to go. Students will be dismissed by their teachers in order to move between classes. And that's part of how we're going to control the traffic flow in the hallways as we go through. We are asking that students do move directly to their next class, and that they not stop at the restroom. They don't stop to refill their water bottles. Teachers are aware that we're asking students not to do this, and we'll be allowing students to leave during the classroom if they need to either visit the restroom or do that during the class period. And fully aware that that decision may cause some head scratching, but the goal behind that is to really make sure that we're not having areas where we have bottlenecks in the hallways, or students congregating, or opportunities where students have to make a decision because, as Dr. McGarrett showed you, there are limits on the bathrooms and how we're doing that. So we're really focusing on getting students, when they transition between classes, to their next class, and then taking care of those other needs during the class period. Another important part of the student day is lunch. And we have been saying this for a while now, but I just want to make sure everyone knows lunch is closed for all students. Students should not come to BCC planning to leave for lunch. I know that that is a long tradition at BCC, but during this time, that is not how we're going to handle lunch. There will be 2 lunch shifts during the lunch time that is set aside in the schedule. And those lunch shifts are 30 minutes each. So students will have a half hour to eat. And students will eat in the cafeteria, the atrium, or the small gym. And then they'll either remain or return to their second or sixth period class, which is the class right before lunch. And we may be able to give some access to outside areas depending on the weather. We are still working out some of those details as we look at where our PE classes are. So I know that that's a really kind of abstract thought if we aren't used to looking at the schedule and haven't spent as much time really thinking about it as some of our staff have. So I want to share with you an example of what lunch looks like, and we'll take it from the perspective of two classes and two different teachers. So I have here Miss Gallagher's second period class and Miss Campbell's second period class. So at 11:15 for everyone, whether you're virtual in the building, no matter who your teacher is, second period ends. So in this example, Miss Gallagher's class at the end of second period, she will dismiss them to eat lunch, and they will go to either the cafeteria, one of the atriums, or the small gym where they'll eat their lunch, and they have until 11:45 before they're dismissed back to class. At 11:45, those students return to Miss Gallagher's second period class, and this is another opportunity for them to do some academic work on their own, to engage in some of those SEL lessons that we have available, any of those types of activities that they have. But this is unstructured time, but they will be back in Miss Gallagher's classroom. Miss Gallagher will not be teaching during this time. It will be not be new content. It is just the time when they'll be in that classroom and have an opportunity to be working there independently. The other class example is the flip of that schedule. So at 11:15, Miss Campbell's second period class ends, and her students are going to stay in her classroom. So they're not going to lunch at 11:15. They're remaining behind. And then they're going to do the same things that Miss Gallagher's class was doing during the second half of that. They're going to either do independent work, they're going to engage in social emotional learning, any of those activities that they need to do. It will be self-directed, and it will not be a time where Ms. Campbell is providing new instruction. There will be no additional learning that's going on during that time. At 11:45, Ms. Campbell will dismiss her kids. They will go to lunch. And then at the end of that time, they will transition to their third period class. So that's the difference. And that's how those two lunch shifts work. So when I say that students will either remain or return to their second period class or their sixth period class, that is based on whether they have a first lunch shift or a second lunch shift. And we have that divided across the building. Students will be told by their teachers which lunch shift they have. It's based on the area of the building that they are in, actually. So another part of that's important to know about lunch is really how that works. And you saw Dr. McGarrett showed, the entrance to the cafeteria, how we have students entering the cafeteria, how those desks are arranged in all of those eating areas, whether that's the cafeteria, the attendance or the art atrium, or in the small gym. We have all of those desks set up facing one direction, and they're 6 feet apart. And that's set up based on the guidelines that we still are following for students in the school building. Students will have the opportunity to remove their masks and eat during that time, and they will have the opportunity to interact with those sitting near them. What we won't be doing is moving desks together, turning them, adjusting them, doing any of that sort of stuff so that we can make sure that we are maintaining as much safety for students as we can. So I know that in a previous meeting, I talked about that lunch is an opportunity for socialization. I don't want anyone to think that it is a time for free, wide open socialization like we might have thought about during lunch before. I just want to be very clear about that students will be able to socialize, they'll be able to interact, but it will be with those people who are sitting near them. We also, again, will be looking at how we can look at those outside spaces that we might be able to utilize, like Dr. McGarrett showed in the video, that outside courtyard, even the concourse that's over by the football or by the stadium, or even the spaces inside the stadium. But we will still be expecting students to refrain from clustering, refrain from getting too close to each other. So that's important to know about that as we look at those opportunities. this is an important reminder for everyone, because this is a change from how parts of the schedule have been viewed in the past. So classes are in session every day for every student from 9 to 2:30. And I say that with every day for every student. I know there are some students who take classes at Montgomery College or who have internships or any of those pieces. That's not what I'm talking about for this. If there are people who have uh, one of those examples, they would be leaving class for that or leaving school for that anyway on a regular basis. But it is the expectation that students attend the entire day of school from 9 to 2:30. And in the past, eighth period may have been treated as an optional part of the day. That is no longer the case. That's a change that started on March 15th. We've been having students rotate back with the expectation that they're there. That is necessary because that is a county-wide decision that there would be an 8-period day. And at BCC, rather than coming up with something that would be really a filler activity, we decided to use it for some of those things that we needed to do anyway, rather than take time away from other classes. But eighth period is expected for every student. Students should not plan, parents should not plan just to have their child leave after seventh period. That is not what we need. Eighth period is expected for everyone every day, or excuse me, every B day, I should say. When we get to the end of the day, this is the same information that we've shared with a little bit more detail in it. So dismissal occurs at 2:30. The bell will ring at 2:30 to end the day. Our MCPS buses will be out there, and we will be asking students who ride a bus to leave the building and get on their bus. Those buses depart at 2:37. They're on a very strict timetable in order to make sure that they do all of their runs and are ready to do middle school runs at 3 o'clock when they dismiss. So all of that is important. We will be asking inside the building for student drivers, for car riders, for walkers to just stay in class for a couple of minutes so that we have time for those buses to clear the parking lot. So we're asking that happen. We do have two areas for parent pickup locations that are there. One is that Chelton Street parking lot again, the same one that was used for drop off. And the second one this time is actually the covered parking structure that you can enter on Pearl Street. It is important that as a parent, if you're coming to pick up a child, that you just don't stop on East West Highway to have your child jump in the car, and that you don't use that entrance on East West Highway. I don't want you to get blocked in by buses. I don't want any of those sort of things to happen. We have the two spaces, Chelton Street parking lot and the Pearl Street parking structure, where you should be able to have plenty of time to pick up your child. It's also possible that you could arrange with your child a location that they're walking to meet you part of the way. That's also a good idea. If you've seen the congestion that's around BCC at the end of the day, you know that it can be a little bit of chaos there. So that is also an option. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the logistics that we've worked through here at BCC. So one is just really a clarification, and that is about the devices that we need students to be using. So because BCC is one of the later schools to open, we're actually getting to learn from some of the mistakes and maybe missteps and changes that our neighboring schools have had to do. And one of those is that we definitely need every person who is attending in-person instruction to have an MCPS issued Chromebook. We have been seeing upgrades across the system to our security measures, and that is not allowing students to access once they're in the building on their personal devices. So the good news is we have 2 weeks from today, actually, before we're back. We have our first round of students, our A group seniors and special education students coming back in the building, our Gold Week group. So you still have plenty of time to go pick up a Chromebook from Rockville if you didn't get one. That's done at 45 West Goody. Next week, they are Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 1. And after that, it is Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. You do not need to have an appointment for that, but you do need to know your student's ID number in order to do that, because that is signed out to your child, and it is something that we will need to get back at the end of the year. But again, most important thing that you could take from this slide is if you do not have an MCPS Chromebook, please make arrangements to go get one from 45 West Goody, because that is what's going to be necessary in order for you to access instruction in the building. Another important thing, last week or about a week and a half ago, I think we sent out information for seniors to request a parking permit. We had originally had concerns. We do have very limited parking at BCC, as you know, but we did have originally concerns that we would not be able to honor all requests for parking permits, but we have been able to do that. Those parking permits were actually handed out over the last couple of days. Everyone who requested one was able to get a parking permit. It does need to be displayed in your car. And just a reminder about the rules that are necessary to be followed for parking, and that those students should follow all of the legal requirements that are necessary for driving as they are driving and parking on campus. So for logistics, we have a couple of what happens if questions I want to talk through with you, because it is going to be a little different than some of these things might have been handled in the past. So the first what happens if question is, what happens if my child needs to arrive late or get dismissed early? So there are actually a couple of options you have with that. One option is simply to have your child remain virtual for that entire day. We do have an attendance code that we can put in now that indicates that your child was virtual, even though it was an in-person day for them. That's always an option. It just cuts down on some of the kind of the time that's needed and really some of the loss of instruction that might happen. But if there's some reason or something unforeseeable and your child's going to arrive late or get dismissed early, those will be handled in two different ways. If they're going to arrive late, they will actually sign in with the attendance office and be given a pass to their first period class. We ask that you send a note with them or that you email our attendance secretary with that note. Parents are not needed to come in the building if a child is arriving late. We don't need you to come in and sign them in. If your child is getting dismissed early, our preference is just as it was in the past, that you send in a note in advance or you email Miss Avilas, and then we'll make sure that your child is ready to be picked up. For example, if you needed to pick them up at 12:30, we'll make sure that they're ready and waiting for you by the main entrance in the bus loop. But if it's something where you don't send in a note and you need to come in and pick them up, we'll actually ask you to come into the main office. You'll let the secretaries know you're there to pick your child up, and they will make the arrangements. And then we'll actually allow you to step back outside so that your exposure is limited within the building to people that you're not normally around. So that's what happens if you have to arrive late or get dismissed early. But it is important to know that it is always the option to choose to make the entire day virtual if that's going to happen, and that's your choice. You just have to let the attendance secretary know in that situation. The next question, what happens if I need to drop something off for my student? Something we see all the time. We're hoping that will definitely be cut down on this year with the opportunity for students to have free lunches and the fact that we don't have as many after school activities and events happening in the school, but we know that it is going to happen sometimes. So that will actually happen. We'll ask you to come into the main office and make sure that your material for your child is labeled with them. And there will actually you'll be directed to a table in the main lobby where you will put the item or items for your child. And then you'll exit right out the front entrance. We do ask that you take the responsibility for letting your child know that there's something on the table for them so that they can get that even during a class transition or at lunchtime, so that we can do that, because it'll be challenging for us to be able to make all that communication with them. So we're asking you to make that communication with your child. The next one, and this is 2 in 1 actually. So it's the what happens if my child feels ill during the school day or my child presents with COVID-like symptoms. So this is something that is a big question for us all the way around. So we have a school nurse or a health tech in the building every day. That's one of the requirements that we have there. And we'll actually be working with them very closely for screening of any students who are ill during the school day, especially children who present with any COVID-like symptoms. And they will be our main line of communication, and we'll rely on them relatively heavily for their health advice, health-related advice. But as a general rule, we will be erring on the side of asking you to come and pick your child up. If they are ill in any way, if they present with COVID-like symptoms, there will be a process that we would talk you through that actually the health tech or the nurse would walk with you through what needs to be done next and how we ensure that it is not actually COVID. But we will be again erring on the side of asking you to come pick your child up. So if we get a call that your child needs to go to the health room, it is likely that we will be asking you to come pick them up. So if your child is feeling ill at the beginning of the day, just like any other day, although I know sometimes even as a parent, it's hard to say that we always do this. If your child is feeling ill at the beginning of the day, we ask that you do keep them home. If they can make it to classes virtually, that's great. If they can't, then they're sick, and then you just need to let Miss Aviles know. But we do ask that because we are going to, in all likelihood, if they come to the health room or we get a call about that, we are going to be asking you to come and pick them up during the day. So a couple of next steps. The first is I want to make sure that everyone is aware if your child is new to BCC and they are returning for partial in-person learning, Miss Adamson, who is one of our assistant principals, is actually coordinating some building tours. We originally had a pretty well spaced out plan for how we were going to do those and share that out. And then with the Board of Education's decision on Tuesday to really accelerate the return of students, that means our BCC students are coming back much faster than we thought, and our plan needed some adjustment. But we will be sending out details about how to sign up for one of those orientation tours. It won't be an in-depth orientation, but at least to help you see the building and have a little sense of where things are. And when I say A building, you'll know what A building is, or when I say F wing, you'll know what F wing is. But look for that information coming via Synergy. In the very near future, Miss Adamson and I actually meet tomorrow, so hopefully we'll be able to get something out soon. But we will be having those opportunities for students who are new to BCC and are returning. If you are the parent of a ninth grader or a new student and your child is staying virtual through the remainder of the year, we will be looking at those opportunities during the summer when we have a little more time to space them out and control the size of our groups. Another important next step is really just to make sure that you have some dates down on your calendar. Tuesday, April 6th and Wednesday, April 7th are virtual instruction days for all students. That's a change that was made at the March 9th Board of Education meeting, but I just want to make sure that everyone has that. That means on Thursday, April 8th, which is a B day, I may have that wrong. It is an A day. I'm pretty confident I have that wrong. I apologize. Thursday, April 8th is an A day. Some students will return to BCC. So, and that brings me to the most important part of this. So if you are, your child is returning to BCC and you look in Synergy, you will see that they are assigned to Group A or Group B. If you hear us refer to Group A or an A week, we also will call it a gold week. Those are the students. If your child says Group A, they are a gold week. If your child says Group B, they are a blue week. So Thursday, April 8th is the first day of a gold week for students. Another important day, 2 days I want to make sure everyone has on their calendar. On Tuesday, April 13th, It is a B day, and it is a school day SAT for juniors only who indicated that they wanted to participate in a previous survey that Ms. Sutton sent out. For most students, for 9th, 10th, and 12th graders, that will be an asynchronous B day. But for 11th graders who are participating in the SAT, school day SAT, they will actually be in the building that day. We'll be sending out some additional details about that as we work out our groupings and making sure we know what time everyone has to report. Do that. And the last thing is just an important note that Friday, April 16th is a no school for students day, so that we will go from there. So at this point, I'm going to ask my administrative team to, if there were any themes and questions that they saw or information that they believe would be important to share with the whole group, to just unmute and tell me so that we can look at all of that, and we will go from there.
Dr. Mooney, I think some parents had some questions about the lunch process and whether or not friends would be able to sit together in the same area, and maybe some clarity around that.
Thank you, Ms. Adamson. So the lunch process is actually, it's going to be first come, first serve seating. So there's an opportunity for friends to sit together. And that's really the kind of the best I could say about it. I can't promise that in any way. We will be divided within the building based on area of the building, which departments are going. So it's possible that unless friends are in the same class, they might not even have the same lunch shift on a given day. But it is an opportunity for them if they're able to get seats that are close together and interact with each other. But it is not something that we're going to be able to guarantee. The other important thing is that we will open up the lunch areas as we continue to get more people back in. So if, for example, in the first wave, when we have seniors back, the only lunch area that we'll need to utilize is probably going to be the cafeteria because we have enough seats in there. I believe, Ms. Teicher will correct me later if I'm wrong. I believe we have enough seats in there to accommodate 2 lunch shifts without having to open up those other areas.
That's correct.
Any other themes or strings and questions that you saw?
Dr. Mooney, we had a couple questions about using Chromebooks as the primary device, which we of course are strongly encouraging. We're strongly encouraging that because those devices are most connected to our network, and I'm sure that that's going to help students be connected for the learning that's most important. But anything to share with parents about using Chromebooks, or if a student were to bring their personal device?
So a potential issue with the personal device is something that we heard. So last week, we actually had our main router upgraded at BCC. And I was talking to a couple of my principal colleagues earlier this week who had more students come back than we had in this first small group. And they had some issues with students even being able to gain access to the internet from inside the building because of the security measures that MCPS has put into place. So I would hate for any student to be in a situation where they come, they're prepared, they're feeling like they're ready for learning, and then there's a technical glitch that gets, kind of starts their day off on the wrong foot because they aren't able to access from the first instance of the day. So the Chromebook is something that we can support. We know that it will access our network. We know that there won't be any roadblocks or barriers there.
Dr. Mooney, could you also clarify the start of the Gold Week and Blue Week for the different grade levels? Because there are a lot of questions about that and some confusion about when 9th graders, for instance, come back according to their week.
I can do that. One thing the Board of Education did in accelerating returns is actually make this much easier to understand. So if you are a senior or a special education student or an ESOL student who chose to return and you are in a group A or Gold Week, your first date back in the building is April 8th and you come that week. If you are a senior or a 9th through 12th grade special education student or ESOL student who chose to return, and your group on Synergy says B, then you are a blue week and you come back on April 12th. That is your first day back. The next week, April 19th, is then the beginning of a gold week or an A group if you're looking at Synergy. And that's when all students, all grade levels in 9th through 12th who chose to return and our A group come back on April 19th. And that's a gold week. And then April 26th is when all students who are B or blue week would return to school. So for some students who are 9th, 10th, and 11th graders who are in a B week, their first day back in the building will be April 26th.
Dr. Moody, some parents are also asking about the 3 feet versus 6 feet separation. And I know we've talked about that a lot, and I'm just wondering if you want to take a moment to explain to parents why we are following our particular protocols with 6 feet.
So the 6 feet separation is, well, first of all, let's start with a reality that goes with that, that the 6 feet to 3 feet separation was information that came out on Friday. And the setup of what we've done, if you think of the picture of the classroom that Dr. McGarrett was showing you earlier, really took us a while to get all of that done and to have all of those spaces set up around the building. So there is a logistical piece of it that would be just a challenge to reevaluate all of those classrooms. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. But MCPS has really been in conversation with the Department of Health and Human Services, with some of our other partners to talk about what that means, the 3 feet versus the 6 feet. And a big part of it for the high school level, especially, is when you read into the details of that, that 3 feet is really a recommendation when you can cohort students and keep the same students with the same teacher all day long. And that was really a part of the plan at BCC that we wanted to avoid from the beginning. We wanted to have students really be able to interact with their teachers as much as possible to move from class to class, rather than really just replicating in a pod system what they might as well be doing at home. So that's a big part of that guidance also from the CDC. Any other themes of questions?
Dr. Moody, there are questions about teachers teaching live in the classroom and what that looks like.
So I would love to be able to give you a really clear picture of what it's going to look like when teachers are teaching live in the classroom. For those of you that didn't attend the last session, there was a slide I had in there, and I really thought about whether to put it back in here or not. No matter what's happening, no matter what week, what day, what rotation, whatever we're on, there will always be more students in any class learning virtually than there are in person. And that's something that's always important to keep in mind. So yes, the teacher is in front of 10 or 12 or 15 students in the classroom, but they also have another probably 2/3 of their class, a third, 50% to 2/3 of their class in the largest areas where they are teaching them virtually also. So we know that teachers are going to be innovative. We know that teachers are going to figure this out. I can share with you as a very personal example, my daughter who's in kindergarten and my son who are in 3rd grade went back to school 2 weeks ago. We started out, some of our very same questions. What was it like? What was your teacher doing? And it changed over the days. It changed, on the first day, it was, well, they were pretty much tied to their desk. They moved a little bit. They slid the card out. They talked to us. And then as we get to today and we're talking to her kindergartner at dinner, she's talking about, her teacher handing her stuff, her teacher interacting with her, using the Promethean board and having a Chromebook set up. So I know that it will change. I can't tell you that I know exactly what it will look like in any classroom on any given day. But I do really believe that our teachers are going to do what they need to do for all of the students that they're teaching, both those that are in front of them in person and the students who are remaining virtual. So the last thing, we're going to end at that point, unless my admin team tells me there's something different. I do want to remind you that if you need anything, these are your main points of contact in the building. Any of the assistant principals, myself, Ms. Teicher, who's the school business administrator, who is handling parking for us in this instance. The only other piece that I want to say to anyone who might be on this call that I didn't include on a slide anywhere is, if you had requested to be added to the wait list for return to school, we will give you at least 1 week's notice before your child is scheduled to come back. We're working through all of that. We're still looking at room capacities. As I mentioned in the last session we had, BCC has one of the highest return rates in the system. So it's a little bit challenging for us to work out that logistical puzzle, but we will be working through that wait list as we continue to monitor our classroom logistics, because we do also have people who are looking at our plan and making the decision that they're just going to remain virtual for the remainder of the year. So that's something that's also going to impact those things. Thank you all very much for joining us tonight. I do hope that you have a great evening, and I hope that everyone has a spectacular spring break and has an opportunity to rest and relax. Thank you all.